G'day guys, how are we going? Well, already there's a few of you on here tonight about with topic we've got. Going to have a bit of a chat about tonight. So, yeah, the ZD30 versus the TD42. Now, before we get too much into this is not going to be a slanging match, all right? So let's just get that clear right now. This is not bagging one out against the other. In the day, they're both mighty Nissan motors, and we're going to go with that. So, as I say, the reason why I brought on this topic here tonight, now I've been asked a little bit about this sort of over the time, and I was only asked again only a few days ago. So I thought, well, let's have a chat about this. And the guy asked me why I bought the ZD30, so the 3 litre, this one right here, as opposed to the 4.2, or did I buy the ZD30? So he must have been following a little bit about what I've done over the years. He asked me, so did you buy the ZD30 because you've had the D22 Navaras? I've had 2 D22 Navaras, both with the ZD30. Yep, slightly different motor in those to what's in this, but at the end of the day, both ZD30. So he asked me whether that's what was my sort of reasoning for buying the 3 litre over the 4.2, the TD42. Well, in short of that, this is 2009 model. So the TD42 was well and truly finished by the time I bought this. So the TD42 was not even an option. So the TD42, it ran from the late 80s right through the GQ years. Now, how good's a GQ? Now, I'm sure there can be plenty of guys here with the GQ. Ran right through the GQ years and into the GU years, right up to 2006 and sort of maybe 2007 is when the TD42 came to a finish. And that's when the Common Rail Diesel kicked in, which is this one right here. And then the ZD30, well, it started around sort of late 1999 is when sort of the ZD30 sort of kicked off. And then in April of 2000 is when the turbocharged ZD30, an intercooled model, really kicked in and went right through to sort of where it is now. It went right through the Y61 years of right up till 2016 where it came to an end. So both of these motors, they're both, iconic Nissan motors, and now they're end of an era. Both of them are now completely and utterly finished in production lines. So, where do we sort of go with this? For these people that are sort of maybe thinking, want to get themselves into a patrol, both of these motors, as I say, now both finished. So what are you going to get into? So are you looking at the ZD30 or is the 4.2, your option? Because this turns up on Facebook all the time, or on social media pages. You'll see someone to put a post up there. I'm looking to buy a ZD30, and wow, it just lights up, with total negativity towards it. And and everyone says, don't waste your money, just get out there and buy a 4.2. Now that might be the case. All right, so, but where the negativity with the 4.2, or actually, I just want to get into, let's just stay on the 4.2 for a minute, because I've done a little bit of research on both of these motors, right? So I've got a few notes sort of going on here. Now, when it comes to the 4.2, yep, there ain't many things wrong with it. Feeding it is a great motor, solid motor. There's no doubt about that. You've got to spend a bit of money on them if you really want to make them get up and go, but what you've got to decide is what sort of touring are you going to do with the TD42? Do you need to spend all that money on them if you're just going to, trip around Australia and leave it completely untouched? So that's probably the other thing there. And one thing I've in the research I've found with the TD42, it's been well described as a motor that will always get you home. So, I mean, how good is that? So that's a really good feedback there if you're looking at the TD42 as an option over the ZD30. But, there's a couple of things going on there with the 42 is overheating issues has certainly been one thing with them that, there's certainly been a bit of a problem with the TD42 as getting hot, and people have tried bigger radiators and intercoolers and all sorts of stuff and still having overheating issues. So I don't know. Some of you guys that have got one of these things are certainly going to certainly come in and have some feedback there. And actually, I've got a mate of mine that I haven't seen for a while, but he's got probably one of the last GU TD42s. And he's done a truckload of research into the TD42 with the overheating issues. Now, he put the bigger bonnet scoop on it, the top mount intercooler, all that sort of stuff on it to try and help with the cooling system on it. But one thing he said that was probably one of the worst modifications he did was cut a hole in the bonnet, put the up top mount intercooler on it, and put the bigger scoop and that sort of thing, because it just created more heating issues. And look, he spent a truckload of money on his. His was putting out ridiculous boost, like 28 up to sort of 30 psi in boost. And in the end, he ended up backing that right down to sort of the low 20s, high teens to 30s, high teens to 20s with his. And but he's still got those heating issues going on with his motor as well. So there's certainly, there's pros and cons for every motor you're going to look at, and with both of these options, there's certainly pros and cons with both options. But we get into the ZD30 now. The old ZD30, it is Phantom copter hiding from, as I say, it was introduced in sort of 99, but really 2000 to 03 were the bad years. Where they were cracking pistons through high turbo boost from standard and this sort of stuff, and all sorts of issues going on with the old ZD30 back in those days. And they've got their tag as the grenade, and unfortunately it sticks today. And that's where they were back in those days. In those 2003 years, they pretty much 100,000 Ks, the pin's been pulled, and it's only a matter of time now before it blows up. And that's pretty much sort of how they sort of went. And unfortunately, that stigma still carries through. Whereas this thing here, yep, the head went on it, or the head didn't really go on it, just that bit of cardboard under the head went on it back in May of 2019 when it had about 310,000 Ks on the clock at the time. We're now just clicked over 350,000 Ks, and it's working an absolute treat. So this is one here that's still going really strong and still going well, and it's an absolute joy to drive. But I'd be great to get some feedback from you guys. I'm going to miss a stack of comments because there's a heap of them coming through. So this is certainly a pretty hot topic here. But Brody, what do you got there? Brody's got just had a 03 GU Patrol wagon converted to a ZD30 or to a TD30 DI to TD42, and that's the other thing too, and that sounds like a really good conversion you've got going there. And I've had a few people ask me, and that's the really well good temperatures and water and EGTs. Well, there's someone there who's done a fair bit of research in converting his to a really good combination. And that's one thing I've had a few people ask me is why not consider maybe pulling the ZD30 out, or the Common Rail Diesel out, and putting a TD42 in it. Well, as far as my understanding goes, and I think I'm pretty on the money here, that you can't go backwards with technology. So I can't put a TD42 into this. And that's one of the reasons why these engines, went out of existence, is purely because emissions. Emissions is a big thing. The TD42 is another reason why that ended up, because of the emissions issues. And same with the ZD30 that was in the D22 Navara, which is, I had two of those from 2003 right up to 2006. Then I had that from 2006 to 2009 when I bought that. But same with those, they went out of production, I think, 06 as well, that model ZD30, again, because of emissions. And then they went back to, in the D22, went back to a 2.5 litre turbo diesel in the D22. So it's all coming around to, emissions and this sort of stuff as to why these motors eventually get phased out, because of the strong restrictions going on with them now. We'll go through some of the the things that are going on with the old ZD30, because there's quite a list, and yep, they are potentially a problem motor if you don't sort of do the right things and look after them going forward, which I've done a fair bit with this one, and we'll go into some of that as we go forward. But so some of the things, with keeping these things going well, I mean, fit a catch can is certainly a good option. If you're looking at a ZD30, put a catch can, and that stops all that sort of oily, gummy crap going right through your exhaust intake, and then gumming those up. Because when we pulled the head off this back in May of 19, the exhaust intake on this was fitting, and it was all clogged up really, really bad. But now it was all cleaned up, and got the oil catch can going on it, and really helps with that sort of thing, keeping it all nice and clean, and certainly helps with your turbo and intercooler as well, keeping it nice and clean. So catch can is certainly a good option. and a couple of really handy gauges, particularly with these things and any sort of turbo diesel, whether it's these or any others. But two gauges, and it's a one of them's not standard, and that's your EGT, so exhaust gas temperature gauge. I reckon it nearly should be nearly a standard gauge. If you haven't got one of those, go and put one in and drive your car as normal when when you get that gauge fitted, and you'll be absolutely staggered to probably the temperatures that you're pushing with an EGT once you get that gauge in there and you actually see what's going on. Now, these aren't EGT and boost pressure gauges. They're not going to fix your problem. They're 100% not going to fix your problem, but at least you can see, right there in front of you, which I've got mine, right there on the front pillar. I can see exactly what's going on, and I can see those two readings, really, really important readings, right there firsthand as to what's going on. So there's a couple of good ones there, and certainly with like any sort of diesel motor, they just love clean oil changes. Now, I'm doing oil and filter in this every 5,000 Ks, give or take, pretty damn well close to it. So there's some other good things there where you need to have a think about. Now, as we go forward, I'm looking to, once we can travel again, I want to go and do a video of this in live, turbo boost and EGT readings in the gauge. As I'm driving along, you'll get to see the numbers that this thing's putting out, and extremely low is what I'm sort of, as far as EGTs go. But we'll get into that when I can get that video up and running a bit further down the track. So look, there's the things with both of those motors. Which way are you sort of looking? And some of you guys here have certainly got them. Here's another one here. Jasford, he's got anything over 350 Ks for a newish diesel, reckon, is pretty good. Yeah, look, I'm very happy with it. And actually, I did a video on this, one of the reliability things on this, probably a good few months ago now. It was up around sort of that around 308,000 Ks. I did a video on how good this thing's been. And I had one guy who made a comment on it saying that it won't make 400,000 Ks. Now, I don't know. It may not, but I'm really hoping. I can't see any reason why it won't, but he's a guy there that I've kept that comment that he made, and he'll be the first one to know about it when this thing gets to 400,000 Ks, and and just got to keep looking after it, and I can't see any reason why it sort of won't. The boost pressures that this thing's putting out. Since I've done a bit of work to this too. It's not sort of your stock standard as far as the internals of the engine go. It's all standard. There's nothing being touched, nothing being upgraded on the internals of my ZD30. But outside, we've put bigger turbos on it and bigger intercoolers on it, and then a retune and that sort of stuff. Putting out about a 122, 125 kilowatts. It's putting out about 22 pound of boost going through it. So yeah, there's certainly plenty of power there if I need it, but I don't drive it just because I've got all that boost. I don't drive it like to use all that boost. So that's one thing with that yeah, I just really like driving it. But I really look forward to making this video where I can show you the actual numbers, real live numbers, what this thing puts out, because it's pretty impressive for one of these. And that's the thing, with the ZD30, it's sort of the 2.8 litre 6-cylinder. It was phased out too way back then in the early 2000s, and that's another motor you don't hear much about, but there's a couple of guys here that have certainly got them, and so that's another part of the turbo or the diesel ranges in the Nissan Patrol motors going forward. And yeah, the mighty GU Patrols. Laurie, how you going there? How's it going? My TD42 is good with 350,000 Ks on the clock. No problems, service and tricks yet. And that's the thing. I think, look, your TD42, it'll probably go for forever. They're hearing these things. They're doing 500,000-600,000 plus Ks and beyond. But as long as you look after them, and I can't see why this thing here won't maybe do the same thing. So, I just keep looking after it, keep those oil changes up, and I've got a few preventative things going on there, so I can really see what's going on with numbers and that sort of thing. And the only time I really sort of monitor, my EGTs and boost pressure is when I'm on the road. When I'm out in the bush, don't even look at those numbers. You don't have time to look at them, so you just drive it to, as hard as I need to drive it to get up those tracks to wherever I'm going. And the other thing too, you probably got to look at too is cost factor. Go and price up a ZD30 as opposed to a 4.2. It'll blow you away. And that's because of, the popularity of them. Everyone just wants a 4.2. You can pretty much hard to find a 4.2 these days that's under sort of 35 grand. They're all 35 plus, for a vehicle that finished back in 2006. But they just want that 4.2 motor and the reliability of them, that sort of stuff. Whereas, your ZD30, depending on age and kilometers and that sort of stuff, they can be anywhere from, sort of between 20 and sort of 30 grand. So there's other things there to think about too. But yeah, and whether you're going to be towing a lot, and what sort of size van you maybe or trailer you're going to be pulling along, as to whether you go 3 litre as opposed to maybe a 4.2. Yeah, lots of things to weigh up, but there's pros and cons with both of them. So, but there's probably a few more cons with this one as opposed to your 4.2, because that's the only thing I really know about the 4.2 as far as issues go, and that's really the overheating issue is probably a big one. As long as you can sort that out is the main one. But with these things, just drive them gentle and put a few preventative gauges and keep those oil changes up and all that sort of stuff. And there is absolutely no reason why they shouldn't keep going for, do those 3, 4, 5, 600,000 Ks. But we're just going to see how it goes down the track. But I've got no issues on it getting it there at the moment, that's for sure. Upper Adventures, how you go, mate? In my patrol, have a TD42. Current one is done 290,000 Ks. Now, 290,000 Ks, I would have thought on TD42 feeding would be nothing. So you've probably got a long way to go, and it's probably going to be a great, reliable vehicle for you. There's no doubt about that going forward. Is the Patrol your everyday car? Yeah, it is, mate. It's on the road every single day. I drive it as a daily driver. So yeah, getting driven every single day. I do like and do enjoy driving it. Since I pulled all that weight out of it, it's just a really nice vehicle to drive, and the power I've got with it, with overtaking now, it's feeding them an absolute breeze. It's really, really nice to actually drive now with the return and bigger turbo and intercooler and all that sort of stuff. And that's the thing, when you go putting bigger turbos in and throwing more fuel in, well, you got to manage all that heat. So that's where the bigger intercooler comes in, and it's all thermostatically controlled. The thermo fan that's underneath it, so monitors all that heat. Going forward, Paul, here we go. He's a 2003 ZD30 and love it. There we go. I'm going to do a remap and a tune next week. Finally found someone who does them. Yeah, in the DI. Yeah, I didn't think you could do them in that model. So yeah, I hope it all goes well for you, mate. And there's a 2003, and that's right in those years of the old tail end of the really bad years, where that stigma really held with the Patrol as far as being a grenade. And with the TD42, they're known as being a kettle. So if you got one of those and, and you want to boil some water on the side of the road, well, just pop the bonnet and it'll boil your water for your cuppa if you want one on the side of the road, because they do get feeding them damn hot. Western Australian, how are you going there, mate? Hopefully it's going all right with you. People need to realise that TD42 is a tractor. Yeah, you can't wind up boost and fuel up and all that sort of stuff. And young fellas nowadays they're becoming very popular, well, have been popular for a long time, with anyone who, if you want to really spend a lot of money on them and make them get up and go, well, why do you need to do that, I suppose? What sort of full driving are you doing to make them, why you need to go and spend that sort of money with high boosts and all sort of stuff to make them go? Yeah, they sound great. There's no doubt about that. But, at the end of the day, do you need to spend all that money on them to make them get up and go? And that's the other thing with these too is probably any of them is make sure they breathe well too. This is 3-inch exhaust all the way through, right from the turbo all the way through to the tailpipe coming out the back. And that certainly helps with your EGTs, with getting rid of some of that heat, the exhaust gas temperatures. So yeah, 3-inch exhaust is really handy. And there's probably no point doing, bigger turbos and intercoolers unless you're going to do the 3-inch exhaust as well, because all you're doing is creating more heat, more fuel and everything else, and it just probably can't get out. So you've got to make it breathe better as it's coming through the back of the turbo, make it breathe better, get rid of that heat a lot quicker, and throw that bigger exhaust in it, and it'll only make it perform better anyway going forward. So there we go. So yeah, there's the old the old ZD30 and TD42, which way to go. But yeah, that's why I bought this, because the TD42 wasn't an option. Not in second hand, not as a new model anyway. And I bought this from new, and I've had it from day dot, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Apart from that little bit of cardboard under the head that failed, because the whole top end of this is now completely new. So yeah, it's a new. All the exhaust intake was all spotless, cleaned, all new head, brand new head on it, new gaskets all the way through. Injectors were all done on it at the time as well, which is a good thing to do. You get those pressure tested, and they all come back with flying colours. And then it's a whole new cooling system. So the only thing that's still probably original hasn't been touched is from the pistons down to the crank. And when they did pull the top off this, the bores and the pistons were examined, and it still had the machine marks in the bores. So that goes to show, with good servicing, clean oil, regular changes, certainly helps with that sort of thing too. So I've got no issues why this thing shouldn't keep going for a long time, and if it gets to 400, there'll be a massive party. Let me give you the drum. Look, I'm pretty passionate about the ZD30 because it cops an absolute hammering, and yeah, and I get why it does. And so yeah, that's why I do like it. ZD30 isn't a race motor. Look, neither of them are. Neither's probably the 4.2, unless you chuck a truckload of money at it. Then you can probably make them really get up and go. But they're not race motors. And look, four drives aren't race motors. Full stop. Probably doesn't matter what you're driving. I mean, they're not designed to. They're not Ferraris. They're not designed for quarter mile racing. They're designed for low down torque and plenty of power when you're out there in low range in the bush. And that's where you got to build them up for, not for doing quarter mile dragging and that sort of stuff. So yeah, they're certainly not race motors at all. Build them up for what you're actually going to use them for. Out there in the bush. Christopher, he's got a 2004 ZD30, cracked the head on at 204,000 Ks. Yet replaced the head with a new drop-in. There we go. Tested 12 months ago. Done the engine conversion with 95 kilowatts. He's done a Ford Barra, huge power. There we go. And that's look, when it comes to engine conversions and that sort of stuff, what do you do? Because I've looked at the possibility if this thing went. I sort of don't like talking about it too much because it's just sitting right there. But listen to all this conversation. But I've always said that I would just chuck another ZD30 straight back in again. But a mate of mine who works at Nissan head office, you can't buy one of them. You can't even buy a crate motor for a ZD30 going forward, and you can't even buy a crate motor for a TD42. They're really, really hard to get hold of. So this is the thing you got to think about with going forward as far as engine conversions go. What do you do? I've thought about maybe a Cummins conversion, a 4.5 litre Cummins conversion would maybe be a good thing. But again, that's only if and when. But at the moment, I'm going to keep this thing rolling. So yeah, so engine conversions, they're coming pretty hard to come by with. If you want to put something original back in it, unless I could get it rebuilt back to what it was, well then I would maybe look at that option as well. But in the day, it's designed. These motors, these vehicles, they're designed for the motor they've got sitting in them. And as soon as you start chucking, V8s in and all that sort of stuff, you're creating potentially a massive amount of headaches potential. So you need to think about that. When you go and change an engine mounts and engineering and that sort of stuff, yeah, it can be an absolute nightmare. But you got to think about that going forward. Giro, the whole reason Land Cruiser are so reliable is that they are tuned down and made to go slow, and that's it. And you look at the 79 series; they're an absolute slug straight out of the factory. But you chuck a tune in them, and yep, they get up and go. And that's the thing, do you leave them untouched? But I haven't really left this thing completely untouched. And but yeah, this thing started out, like I said, I've had this since new, and it started out with a chip in it. It was pretty much non-adjustable, so it was pretty much just chucking a heap of fuel into it. And, it would punch 600 degrees on the EGT gauge in a heartbeat, no dramas at all going up the road, but that sort of thing. But I'll probably leave that because I want to really go into that sort of detail when I get this video done of driving up the road and showing you some real world figures of what this thing does now. But it's amazing drops, massive drops from what it was back then with the chip in it to what it's doing now. Huge EGT drops, massive. But I'll go into those as we go forward a bit later on. Clinton. He's got the TD42 overheating problems. I just put the thermo fans on it, and an AU Falcon, yeah, right, and overheating problems. Fix these overheating problems. Well, there you go. Looking, yeah, bigger radiators, that sort of stuff. Chuck some thermo fans on it, and hopefully that's enough. And the other thing too, with when it comes to, which I've had a few comments from mine, is I've now pulled the spotlights off the front. You know, they were massive, big round spotlights. Yep, they look fantastic, but all they do is it just blocks up your airflow. And you might think it's much, but any sort of airflow blockage going into your radiator is going to potentially affect your cooling system. So there's something else you certainly need to think about with these big spotlights sit on your bull bar, is how much airflow is it actually restricting getting into your radiator. So I've taken them off. I might put my light bar back on at some stage, but the bull bar lights are gone. Not that I ever had an overheating issue with that, full stop. Never really had any overheating issues, drama, apart from when the head went, temperatures went through the roof. But other than that, but at the end of the day, it's keeping that airflow going through and keeping that motor running as efficiently as you possibly can is certainly the go. Patrol was heavier vehicle, silly due to the ZD30 in it. Yeah, look, mine's extremely light now after I pulled a truckload of weight out of it. But yeah, they are a big car, and that was sort of one of the negative things with the Patrol when they very first came out, going to chuck a 4-cylinder in them, was going to be, a big vehicle, big heavy vehicle, going to push a 4-cylinder around, and that's, created a lot of issues with them as well. So, yeah, you can certainly do it, but again, it all comes down to how you drive them as well. Is a big one. How you drive them and how you look after them. Look after them, and they should look after you as well. I don't know why. We keep coming back to the V8s in the 2 out of series, the 79 series Land Cruiser, and I still don't know to this day why Nissan let Toyota get away with that, and why they didn't chuck a baby V8 in this when the 4.2 came to an end. Why they didn't make up a baby V8 to go in that fitting. They would not be able to keep up with supplying them if they came up with that option. But yeah, they let Toyota get away with that one with the little V8 in the 79 series, and very, very extremely popular vehicle for those reasons. Braden rebuilt the motor. Once it dies, I converted it could be potentially opening a can of worms. And yeah, look, it could be, mate, but we just got to see how that all goes with a rebuild. But at the moment, it's going good, so we'll just leave it as it is. My dream car is a GU Patrol with a 79 series engine. Well, here we go. We're going to talk about chucking a 79 motor inside the GU. Have the amazing drivetrain. Look, yeah, and that's certainly one thing that right through from the GQ, right through the GU range, is the running gear is pretty much bulletproof. And that's certainly one good thing with them, but just got to get that engine right. And there's no perfect combination either. So, yeah, I'd be interested to know if you're going to chuck a little Toyota V8 in them, how that would sort of go, and what sort of running gear you're going to put behind it, whether you've got to change your running gear to go with it, whether it's going to handle it. I don't know. You have to really look into that if you're going to go down that option. TD, we might wrap this one up, and I greatly appreciate all the feedback tonight. Sorry I haven't been able to get on to everyone here because, yeah, pretty hot sort of a topic. So if you're deciding between the TD42 or the mighty ZD30, which way are you going to go? Because both of them good options. Just depends on what you want it for, what you're going to use it for, and then how far you go with them. So good on you guys. Thanks very much. Greatly appreciate you coming in tonight, and we'll catch you next week. New video tomorrow night. One from in the shed here, but you'll wait and see that one tomorrow night. It's all about fridges and what I do with it. Good on you guys while we're in lockdown. Good on you guys. Thanks very much. Greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch you a bit later on. Hooroo.